are going to start the first topic of our English book, that is The Voice of God. It is basically the poem that we are going to do today. A poem is something when you express in a rhyming form, okay? It's different than prose. Prose are more lengthier, but poems are short. You convey the message in the poem and in the prose. Both have the same, have morals and have message into it. But poems are a bit different how they are always in the rhyming position. And they are shorter than the prose. A poem is written by a poet. When someone writes the poem, what do you call them? You call them poet. And in your paper, this is one of the important questions that is always there. They ask you about the poet, the information regarding the poet, and it's always there in the first paragraph of your book. If you have seen the information regarding the poet is over there, and that is enough for you. You don't need to look for extra things. This is enough for you even if the question carries 3 to 4 marks. So let's talk about this poem, The Voice of God. It is 4-line poems and it has a strong message in it. Let's talk about the poet. This poem, I'm going to read it from the book. It's there and you can write all the details from the book. This poem is written by Louis I. Newman and he was born in 1893 and he died in 1972. He was born in the Providence, Rhode Island, USA. That's in USA. He studied at the Brown University and after his doctorate lectured at Columbia. He is the author of many books on religious subject. Okay, so basically he was a religious poet. As you can see it from the name, The Voice of God means that he is a religious poet. He is a religious poet, you can say that. This poem brings out his religious bent of mind. So what actually has in his mind, it portrays over here. And it has a very strong message. When I'm going to read it, you'll figure it out that what important message that this 4-line poems carry. I sought to hear the voice of God and climb the topmost steeple. But God declared, go down again, I dwell among the people. I'm going to read this thing again and then I'm going to explain you the difficult words. It says that I sought to hear the voice of God and climb the topmost steeple. But God declared, go down again, I dwell among the people. Now, you can see the meaning of the steeple, it's already there. It means the tallest part of the religious building. Like you have seen on the mosque, we have the pillar. So he was there, the poet was standing over there because he wants to meet the God. And if they are of different religion, they have churches. So they have this pillar sort of a thing. So this means that he was standing at the topmost position and he believes that as we all see, whenever we want to look for the God, we look up in the sky. So he actually believed that the God lives above all everything. So he went up there to the tallest part of the building and wanted to look for the God. But when he went there, what did God tell him? That just go down. I'm not at the topmost or I'm not at the tallest part of anything. I am among the people. Now look at the difficult words. Difficult words are sought, which means past tense of seek. It is a past tense that basically the base word is seek. And it's the past tense is sought. Seek means when you find something, to find something. And dwell means reside, lives in. So basically, where does God live? He lives in the people. You don't have to go and do something special for the God. If you do something good for the people, you'll find the God there. So this is the whole message of the poem. And there are 3 questions that are there. And if 2 I've written over here on the board and 1 I'm going to do it later. Which says that if you look at the question number 1, why did the author climb the steeple? And the other one is, why did the God tell him to go down again? So all the story and all the questions that come in the paper revolves around these 2. And the third one is, what is the message? Which means that what did you learn from the poem? So all these questions, these 3 questions carries, the exact meaning and the exact things which comes in the paper. They might change the question form, but the answers will remain the same. So I'm going to give you the answers in a while, but let's revise what we have done. Then we can move on to the question and answer session. Okay, this is the first one. That is the first topic of your book. That is the voice of God, and it's a poem. And I told you that there are total 13 poems in the book, and these all 13 are very important because you never know what will come in the paper. The poem is written by a poet, and the poet of this poem is Louis I. Newman, when he was born in 1893, and in 1972 he died. He was basically a resident of USA, and all the details are over here. So your first question, if it says, can you tell us about the poet of the voice of God, which is an important question. I'm going to write it over here. What do you know? The question is always there after every 2 years. What do you know about the poet? This is the important question of the voice of God. So the answer is there in the book, so you don't need to prepare any other thing. Just learn these 4 lines and it will be enough for them. And you can see the difficult words are there. It has only 2 or 3 difficult words which I have given the meaning already. And I've told you what was the message in the poem. That God is everywhere. He is among the people. Basically, He is everywhere. You don't have to go somewhere in the mosque or somewhere else to look for Him. So next part is that we are going to do the question answers of these 3 things. Let's continue with the question answers of the poem, but first let's read the poem again, because the reading of the poem is very important. Whenever you're doing your English, your reading matters a lot, because when you read something, you understand it in a different way. Everyone has its own perceptions, so you figure it out. Every time you read, you learn something new. So let's read the poem again, and the name of the poem is The Voice of God, and it was written by Louis I. Newman. And let's read the poem. I sought to hear the voice of God and climb the topmost steeple, but God declared, go down again, I dwell among the people. Now the first question is always there in your textbook, and that is, what do you know about the poet? This is the most important question. It is always there. It's in alternate years, this question is appearing in your paper. They may ask you about any of the poets. So they have given you the brief introduction in the book. Your answer is in your book. These 4 lines, they are enough for them, and you can gain good marks once you have delivered or you have written these lines in the paper. The second question, which is another important thing, it's there in your exercises. It's 1 over here, but I've written 2 over there. Why the author climbed the steeple? Okay, the answer is, the poet thinks that the God is only present in some particular places. If you can see, you can have the reference of the line, which is important. When you are answering something, you should refer it back. So it says that I sought to hear the voice of God and climb the topmost steeple. So this part of these 2 lines, it explains that why did the author climb the steeple? The poet thinks that the God is only present in some particular places, like at the top of the religious buildings. So that is why he wanted to hear the voice of God, because it means that he wanted to talk something to the God. So that is why, in his opinion, that God is always he is above all everything. So that is why he climbed up the tallest part of the building. It says that is why he climbed the steeple. So the answer of question number 1 is quite clear. In your past paper, they may not give you this, why the author climbed the steeple. They are going to change the question pattern, but the answer will remain the same. Now, the second question is over there. Why did God tell him to go down again? I've written it question number 3 over here, because my first question is about the poet, which is always there in the paper. Why did the God tell him to go down again? The answer is, God is omnipresent. It means that he is everywhere. That is why he is not confined only to the religious places. Like, you can go and find God everywhere, in everything that you see, that you hear, that you touch. It's not necessary that you have to go to the mosque, particularly for this reason, to meet God. God therefore told the poet to go to the earth as he lives among the people. He may find God by doing virtues, which means good deeds. You need to perform good things, and you have to do good deeds in your life to meet God with people, with your people, the people surrounding you, with your relatives, with your kids. So this is actually the main message of the poem. If you see, the questions revolve around the message. There are two messages which we have gained. One, that God is not confined to any particular place. You have to go and you can find God everywhere. And how you can find God? You can find God when you are performing and when you are doing good deeds with the people. This is the whole message of the poem, because your third question says that, say in your own words, what do you think in the message of this poem? In past paper, there was one question, what should we do to hear the voice of God? If you see, the answer of this question is question number 3. So, all the question that comes in the paper revolves around these two answers and the one I'm going to give you later. So it says, the question in the past paper says that what should we do to hear the voice of God? It links with this question. So they are going to rotate the question, but the answer will remain the same. Okay. So the third question that is there in your book, that is exercise B. It's my fourth over here because my first question was about the poet, which was the important question. So I have given it as first question over there. This is third in your book and fourth for me. The message was, say in your own words, what is the message of the poet? Okay, what was the poet trying to tell us? This is the most important. It means it can come in such a way that what is the central idea of the poem? They can ask you like, what message did you get from the poem? What did you learn from the poem? What was the poet trying to say? These are the different forms of the question, but the answer will remain the same. That is, the message of the poem. Okay, always write down the name of the poem in your answer. Even if you'll find the name of the poem in the question also. Whenever you are delivering the answer in the past papers also, you have to, in your paper, you have to write down the name of the poem. Okay, what is the poem? Because there are so many poems, like I told you before, there are 13 poems and like 13 prose. So everyone has different author and different poet. So you need to mention of which thing you are talking about, which message you are talking about. So it says that the message of the poem, the voice of God, is that, what was the message? You have read it like it. It was only 4 lines poem and it has a very strong message. What was the message? Let's do this question. The God is not confined to the religious places. You are not supposed to, and you cannot find God in mosque only or in some of the tallest part of the building. He is everywhere. He is omnipresent. Omnipresent means that he is everywhere. And to achieve his nearness, if you want to be near to God, if you want to be closer to God, if you want to gain some good things from God, you can say his blessings, what do you have to do? And to achieve his nearness, we must live with his fellow men with love and serve them to show our love for God and win over his blessings. Whenever you're talking about God's presence, how are you going to gain it? Or we all know about that. That's what given in Islam also. So what are you supposed to do? You have to do good things with the people. You have to perform salah. You have to do fasting. These are all deeds that are related to God. But what we are talking about over here in the poem, he's saying have good things and good relationship with the people around you, with your families, with your children, with your neighbors, with the strangers. So all the rules are there in Islam also. And as you can see in this poem, the poet has given a strong message regarding that hukukul ibad, if you can say, it's there in this poem. So now we're going to look at the questions that comes in the past paper from this topic, this first chapter. It's a very simple poem and it has very simple answers and it's not that lengthy. And the message of the poem is very clear. So the questions revolve around the message of the poem and the questions that are already there in your exercise B. It says that you can have this first question. It was there in the past paper, like what is the central idea? It means that what is the central idea of the poem? This is the first question and it is important for every poem. And this question can be turned around like, what does what message the poet convey in this poem, in this poem, the voice of God? Then there is another question. What should we do to hear the voice of God? What should we do to hear the voice of God? Okay, if you look at the first part, what is the central idea of the poem? The central idea of the poem is that, which is the third question of your exercise, which says that God is not confined to any particular place. He's present everywhere. He's omnipresent. You can find him among the people, among the things that surrounds you. So this is the central idea. And how can you get his blessings, or how can you get near to the God? You can get near to the God by doing good deeds with the people. The people around you are like the ones that can help you earn his blessings. Similarly, if you say, what is the question number 2, what message did the poet convey in his poem? That's exactly have the same answers. All these two questions have similar answer, which is question number 3 in your book, which talks about the message of the poem and what does poet tries to convey. It has the same answer as above. Then another question, what should we do to hear the voice of God? Again, this is the second question of your book. When God asked him to go down again, how can you have God hear you? You can have him hear by doing virtues with his people and by helping others, by doing good deed. So this is the small message which is there. You just have to rotate. The questions are just in the rotation. They have the answers, which we have done in exercise B. They have 3 questions over there. They just rotate the question, but the answers are always there. Like it has a similar answer of question. The question may have the same answer to the question number 1, or to the question number 2, or to the question number 3. So the important questions or the past paper questions that are present, I've gathered all these, and the other questions are exactly similar to the ones that are given in the exercises. And the most important question which is there in the past paper is, what do you know? As I mentioned earlier, what do you know about the poet? The correct name of the poet is very important. And there is one more question. When they ask you for the artices, they ask you, write the name of the book from which this poem has been taken, or from which these lines have been taken. So the name of your book is, as I mentioned earlier, it's like you have to write down this name, Secondary Stage English Book 2 for Class 10. So you should know the name of your book and who's the publisher. The Syntax Book Board, Jamshoro, is the publisher of the book. And then you can start off with your answer. And it carries 1 or 2 marks, but it is a mark gaining, or you can have full marks in this thing. So always remember this question. It is always there in the past paper, either in the alternate one or in the regular ones. So these are the questions that you have to cover, and it has the same answer as we have discussed. I've given you the answer, the detailed answer. I've written it on the board, so you can copy it down or learn it from there. So what did we do? So while winding up the chapter, I want to tell you that the name of the poem was The Voice of God. It was written by Louis I. Newman. Okay, he was born in USA. So all the 4 things that are over there, the 4 lines about the poet which are there in the book, it's exact the answer for, you can write down the exact answer for this in question number 4, and that's enough for you. You don't have to get any extra thing. You don't have to write any extra thing about the poet. And what was the message of the poet? I've repeated it quite times, that what is the message? That God is omnipresent. He's present everywhere. You cannot only find him to the tallest building or to the mosque or anywhere. You can find him by doing good deeds. This was the message of the poem. Then there was one question, why did the poet climb the steeple? He climbed up the steeple because he wanted to talk to the God, and he think that his mind has this thing that God is at the highest or at the tallest part of the building. But this is not true. What did God tell him? God tell him to go down again and live as I live among the people. You can always find me there by doing good deeds and by doing some good work for the people that surrounds you. It's not necessary that they should be strangers. You can have good things, but you can gain his blessings by doing good deeds with your relatives also, with your children, with your family, with your parents, with your friends, and then comes the stranger. Okay, so basically this top poem talks about hukukul ibad. If I just summarize this thing up, it talks about hukukul ibad, which is the most important aspect in the Islam.